Are you looking for some scary games you can play with your friends this Halloween?
You've come to the right place. We're talking about 5 couch co-op horror games to play this Halloween.
Congo. Congo is an interesting horror game. It mixes survival and old-school top-down shooter elements. Instead of the usual abandoned building or streets filled with the undead, it throws you into a jungle setting, which makes for a unique experience for this genre.
You can play the game with up to 4 players co-op, local or online. You get a chance to choose the stage you want, so you don't have to play in any particular order. Each stage has an objective that you and your partners must complete to move forward. Usually it involves gathering gas or explosives to remove a barrier of some sort.
The game is in split screen, so you can choose to either stick together and fight the monsters as a unit, or split up and try to accomplish the tasks faster. Each player has a torch to help navigate through the dark environments, as well as machete for close combat. You're able to pick up a variety of guns too.
This game has some great sound design, so if you can, play with a sound system to get a more immersive experience. Congo is a fun game to play with friends, even if it's a little rough around the edges.
The dark visuals and the atmospheric sound really help create a pretty creepy feeling, so at least give this game a shot.
Horror Story. Horror Story came out in the arcades with one home console port that came out exclusively in Japan on the PC Engine CD. That's the version we're playing. With a name like Horror Story, this game is pretty limited on the actual horror part. It's not scary. But it has monsters and horror-themed elements, so it still fits our list.
I love trying to find unique and obscure games that not many people talk about. I feel like this falls into that category as well. It's an auto-scrolling run-and-gun shooter with some platforming. We really suck at this game, and we couldn't get very far. But it's something we want to go back to. Not unlike Contra or Metal Slug, you get the expected weapon upgrades. Of course, some are better than others, and one thing I always appreciate about a platformer is having the ability to double jump. Is it just me? Why is this so satisfying? One negative is that you can't shoot up or diagonally. It's not the best run and gun, but if you're a fan of the genre, it's worth giving a try. Unbearable.
Unbearable was released in early access in 2022 and is the newest game on the list. This is a pretty straightforward, traditional survival horror game. You can play it in split-screen co-op with a friend.
The game is really rough in some parts. But it's also not finished, so I don't want to focus too much on that. If you have recently played the original Silent Hill or Resident Evil, then you should have a high tolerance for janky horror games. Overall, the game controls fairly well. We did run into a problem where some commands just weren't working, and then we got stuck in a room and weren't able to trigger the next part. Again, as it's in early access, I'm not going to judge it too harshly.
What I did like about this game was the creepy setting. It seems to be an abandoned asylum of some sort. It reminded me of Outlast. Much like the previously mentioned survival horror pioneers, you'll have the typical item management, puzzles, and awkward combat.
Honestly, with some more polish, I think this could be really fun. I plan to keep an eye on its development. There simply aren't enough local co-op survival horror games. Seven Mansions. Seven Mansions is a Sega Dreamcast exclusive that was only released in Japan. We finally got a fan translation a few years ago, and I've been talking about this game ever since.
We covered this at length in our top 10 co-op Dreamcast games video, so make sure you check that out as well. This is another traditional survival horror. This is so similar to Resident Evil and Silent Hill that it could have been released under one of those names. As far as I know, this might be the first co-op survival horror game ever.
You have a couple options when it comes to camera and controls. The first option is a dynamic split screen. When you're together, you're on one screen with tank controls from a third-person perspective. And when you move apart, it goes to split screen, with each player going first person. I love this feature in most games, but we found it to be quite disorienting in this one. We recommend setting the camera to fixed mode, so you each stay in first person view.
Of course, the game isn't perfect. It's definitely a product of its time. You'll experience all the awkward controls, bad camera, obtuse puzzles, and everything else of the era. But it's such an obscure game that no one talks about, and I wanted to make sure everyone becomes aware of it. Despite its shortcomings, it still offers a fun and unique experience that can't be found in many other games. Death Road to Canada. Death Road to Canada is like a combination between Hunter the Reckoning and the Oregon Trail. You and the other survivors must fight through hordes of zombies while collecting supplies. The adventure goes for a period of days as you make your way towards the Canadian border. The driving parts are played like a text adventure where you're offered various choices that will impact your trip.
You'll make plenty of stops along the way to search for ammo, health, and gas. These are the action-packed parts. But unlike other games, when you make a stop for supplies, it's not always played like a linear level. Sometimes you just go in to search for items, then get back to the car. The game is procedurally generated, so each playthrough is different. We loved the basic pixel art style, and some of the music was really great too. Definitely play this indie title with a friend if you haven't yet. So there's 5 couch co-op horror games that you should play with your friends this Halloween. We have a bunch more we plan to get to in the future.
What are your favorite couch co-op horror games? If you like this video, be sure to check out the top 10 co-op Dreamcast video we mentioned.
Thanks for watching.
This is Halloween. This is Halloween.